Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello there. How are you? It's Friday, and it's the 10th. Oh, good God, how did that happen? The summer that we never had is almost half over. So, how you doing? It's another gray day in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the sun never shines. Right about now, if they're running on time, that despicable rag, the Confederate flag, is coming down in a front in front I'll get it out of the South Carolina state capitol. But I don't know. I was listening to, I guess, CNN on my way down, and everyone they were interviewing, all these African Americans said, I never thought I would see this day. It was such a part. I never thought so either. It's just been such a part of the scenery in this country, certainly since I can remember. And it's fascinating that, 150 years plus after the South surrendered, that flag was still flying. And I really think it's kept the South from coming to terms with what that war was about. And I have to tell you, I have not heard any calls for the history books used in the South to be altered. But my understanding is that the history books in the South really whitewash, never was the word more apt, whitewash what the Civil War, the uncivil Civil War was about. But this thing coming down, it's not to be poo-pooed. It's powerful. It is powerful, and it lifts a burden from the hearts of an awful lot of people for whom that flag represents terror and hate and brutality. Amazingly, you've heard probably that in Washington, D.C., in the House of Representatives controlled by the grand old party, there was an effort yesterday to allow the Confederate flag to be flown on certain occasions in federal cemeteries and in national parks, and to be sold on to still have a presence in our nation's public lands. and that the Republicans would slip an amendment like that into an appropriations measure 24 hours before South Carolina is pulling that flag down shows an obtuseness and unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'll quote one of the Republicans who was for it. Representative Lynn Westmoreland, Republican of Georgia. When you're putting a flag on someone's grave, to me, that's a little different from being racist. It's more of a memorial. I mean, these were people that were fighting for their states. I don't think they had even any thoughts about slavery. There it is, the fact that here's a representative of the U.S. Congress who clearly doesn't even know the history. I don't know. So this was another embarrassment to the Republicans, and Boehner, finally realizing it, yanked the amendment off the floor so that the embarrassing verbal exchanges that were occurring wouldn't continue to happen. I used to say Republicans were shameless, which means that, they don't get embarrassed. They just double down and keep moving forward. And yet, we are seeing how they're just... Trump is truly embarrassing them, and they don't know how to deal with it, because much of what he's spouting is pretty much what they say too. He just is inelegant about it. He is, there's no subtlety, no nuance. And it's why it is such a delight to so many in their base. Boy, words are freaking me out today, because base. I find the base of the Republican Party base on base. You don't know what that word means, base?
Which meaning are you using?
An adjective.
Okay, yes.
Yes, right? Doesn't it mean, yeah. The base is base. Words are freaking me out today, I'm sorry. Seems like everything I say, there's strange little parallels and stuff. Like in front and up front, that just sort of came out. And then there were a few others. So words are playing in my head today. I saw two little very skinny-legged furries. They were both dressed, I believe, as kittens. And they had skinny little legs. One had pink tights. One had, I don't know, purpley. And they were sort of hugging each other as they walked down the street with their big kitten heads. It's odd. I'm sorry. It is odd. It's odd, but, world's a big place, and all different kinds of people. Okay. Speaking of base, I want to just mention the Pirates. Baseball. One of the announcers last night, during what turned out to be a debacle of an inning after a very tight game, I thought said the great... I mean, it just made me laugh. And believe me, I wasn't in a laughing mood. The Cardinals must have loaded the bases 2-3 times in a row. They just kept coming around. It's amazing they didn't score more. I thought they were going to end up scoring about 12 runs. As it was just 4. But the announcer said, I thought it was a wonderful little sentence. And now as I look at it, it doesn't look like much of anything. Isn't that weird how different moments? So I'm afraid now, it's like, when you have a wonderful thought in the middle of the night and you scribble it down, and then in the morning you look at it and you think, what the that's not terribly interesting. But here's what it was. And it was said with a tone of like such angst. He said, "The bases are filled with birds." And indeed, the bases were filled with birds. And they continued to be filled with birds for some time. So, 1 down, 3 to go. Come on, Bucks! That's all I'm going to say. I feel very sort of slow today. Can you hear it? Even in my cadence. I don't know if it has anything to do. I was rear-ended yesterday. And I don't think I'm somebody you want around in any kind of a situation that is spontaneous and where you have to perform in a certain manner. I was minding my own business, sitting at a stoplight on Allegheny River Boulevard, and some poor soul had just finished passing my window, and I was afraid to look up. He was either selling flowers or panhandling, and I sort of had kept my head down. I just did not want to engage, and no sooner had he cleared my, I must say, excellent peripheral vision than pow! A large, tall pickup kind of truck slammed into me. And, that's always a little, to say the least, startling. And then after the initial startle, there's this feeling of, shoot, or shit, whatever. Damn. I got things to do. I had plans. I'm on my way here. I don't need this. And so I sort of looked in my rearview mirror, and I see this big guy getting out of the truck, and he doesn't look happy either. And I got out of my car, and I said, so, was there much damage? And he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Is there much damage?" And I looked, and I saw this little bit of a and another little bit of a in the bumper. It didn't look like much of an impression. He hadn't hit me going 7,000 miles an hour. I had a to my head and neck. And all he kept saying is, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Gosh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I'm sorry." He said, "Do you want to, we should maybe pull over and I'll, give you my information." And that's when this is when you find out that, like, I so want to avoid unpleasantness and sometimes even human contact, that I said to him, nah, it's okay. So what? It's a bumper. It's a little bit. He said, "Are you okay?" He started thinking, she's rattled. She's not even wanting I'm giving her and she won't take my information. I said, "It's okay. I don't care." I said, and I sort of like punched him in the arm, and I said, "It's your lucky day." I said, "You rear-ended an old lady who doesn't care. And he said, are you okay? You sure you're okay? I said, yeah, fine. Get in my car. And we didn't hold up traffic at all. It's a very long light. And I proceeded on my way. The minute I pulled away, my head started hurting. My back started hurting. I thought, oh my God, maybe I did hurt myself here. Maybe I'm not okay. But it was too late in terms of, having him. He's free. So I did, I ended up, was a little concerned. I did go see a doctor, and he checked me and did all this stuff, where all right, follow my eyes, follow my, and then he had me do like essentially what is a drunk test, walk in a straight line, putting your feet. I can't do that. I have horrible balance, mostly because one of my feet is nailed together and does not have normal movement. And so I'm like falling all over, and I said, this is the way I always am. If I ever got stuff for drunk driving, and I'm totally sober, I'm dead. I said, because I can't do this. So then he said, all right, count backwards from 49 by sevens. I said, geez, I can't even do that on a good day. I said, I'm no good at numbers. Don't do that to me. But then I thought, okay, you can do this. Let's see, 49, 42. I got stuck a little bit of 42. 35, 28. And then he also asked me, he said, what day is it? And I said, I'm not good at those kind of questions. Let me think. I said, oh, yeah, it's Thursday. But, I'm not quick on any of these things. And so I had to keep assuring him that this is my that's perfectly normal for me. Perfectly normal. He said, I'm going to give you 3 words. Okay? It was like toast, pillar, and green. And then he went on to something else, including all right, what month is it? I said, it's July. And he said, count the months backwards from July. I was good at that. Oh, sure, man. July, June, May. Yeah, May, April. Blah, 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 blah. I did that one. And then then he said, what were those 3 words I asked you to remember? And having seen that movie, didn't I tell you I saw that movie where one of the Alzheimer's things, they did that. They did that to the woman. I'm going to give you 3 words, and then they just move on. And then 5 minutes later, they come back and say, what are those 3 words? So I knew when he gave me those 3 words, that's what he was going to do. So, man, I like toast, pillar, green. That's all. That's why I couldn't count back on sevens, because I kept thinking, toast, pillar, green. 35, toast, 28, 21, green. And so I ended up passing that. But he decided that I seemed to have my cognitive functions somewhat in order. And but really, on a good day, those questions that kind of stuff is very tough for me. And you get immediate performance anxiety. So, whatever. Anyway, he thought I might feel worse today, and I think he was right. So I'm wondering, you think cognitively I'm up and running? I think maybe, perhaps. He thought I might have had a minor concussive. Well, because anytime, we've talked about this. My brain probably went into my skull and then splash back. And what happens, he said, is that you can, a lot of things happen. It's because the neck, stop and think about how the neck is the narrowest part of the body. Yes. And everything sort of is, gets into that. The neck is like the tunnels. It's a traffic jam. Everything has to go in there and then up into the brain. So when the neck gets, there can be a lot of structures in there and little filaments and fragments, I guess, that can be traumatized in some way. So there you have it. But how stupid is it that because I just I just didn't want to be bothered, that I was unwilling to do what you're supposed to do if you're in an accident, which is exchange information. I don't know. Stupid! I knew it was stupid when I was doing it. But I just didn't wanna. I didn't want to be one of those people on the side of the road where everybody's driving by and going, oh, wonder what happened there. I just didn't wanna. I think I'm in denial a lot. Let's get to the Pope. God, I love this Pope! So the Pope, and this is particularly resonant to me because Santa Cruz, Bolivia, where he gave the most extraordinary speech of his pontificate, is the birthplace of my son. And I have been in Santa Cruz, Bolivia. I know Santa Cruz, Bolivia. And anything that has to do with Bolivia, I'm always interested. And so to think that this wondrous Pope, I know exactly where he was standing there and said what he said yesterday. Wow. I got to tell you, Catholics like Rick Santorum, Phyllis Schlafly, those types, the right-wingers, Catholics, it must be very hard to be in their heads right now. Because if they're good Catholics, they know the Pope is somebody they've got to listen to. And this Pope is increasingly sounding like a leftist revolutionary. Flat out. Do you know what he said? Because I got to tell you, the Wall Street Journal account, which I read today, was so watered down, it was amazing. The New York Times account was not particularly. Here's who you needed to hear it from. Reuters. He's talking in front of all of these people who are activists throughout South America. Indigenous people activists, people who are on the outside, people who are looking after the little guys or trying to. So he had an audience that he knew was going to appreciate his words. Listen to some of what he said. I'm just going to give you direct quotes and then I'll get back. Let us not be afraid to say it. We want change. Real change. Structural change. And then he goes on to talk about the structure that exists now, global capitalism. And he said, the structure now has imposed the mentality of profit at any price, with no concern for social exclusion or the destruction of nature. This system, said the Pope, is by now intolerable. I mean, if this were a firebrand revolutionary saying this, it would be dismissed. This is the Pope. The system is intolerable. He's talking about the system that every world leader, practically he's talking about the IMF. He's talking about what's happening to Greece. He's talking about what's happening to American workers. He's talking about rapacious capitalism and how it doesn't give a damn for people, for nature, and only cares about filthy lucre, which earlier in the speech he called the dung of the devil. Woo! Here's the Pope. This system is intolerable. Farm workers find it intolerable. Laborers find it intolerable. Communities find it intolerable. Peoples find it intolerable. The earth itself, our sister, Mother Earth, as St. Francis would say, finds it intolerable. He has, of course, attacked capitalism before, as other popes have. And this pope, sounding like this, is coming to the United States in 2 months. This pope is going to address a joint session of the United States Congress, which, as we know, is filled with people who will find his remarks communistic. Boehner is a Catholic. I can't wait to see Boehner sitting behind the Pope, listening to the Pope rip every policy that he supports. This Pope is fearless. Here's what he said. He talked about a new form of colonialism. He's talking about the IMF. He's talking about all this. He doesn't say specifically he's talking about that, but he says this. No actual or established power has the right to deprive people of the full exercise of their sovereignty. Whenever they do so, we see the rise of new forms of colonialism, which seriously prejudice the possibility of peace and justice. The Pope goes on to describe what he means by the new colonialism. The new colonialism takes on different faces. At times it appears as the anonymous influence of mammon, corporations, loan agencies, certain free trade treaties, and the imposition of measures of austerity, which always tighten the belts of workers and the poor. Here's the Pope. Angela Merkel, are you listening? Here is the Pope saying, all you guys create this mess, and then to fix it, you ask the people who you have screwed to take the hit. Says, always these guys, these capitalists, always come up with a new way to screw people. And this is the new form of colonialism. He yesterday defended labor unions, which Republicans are trying to destroy. Scott Walker, who is the biggest union buster in this country, Scott Walker, who wants to be your Republican president, Scott Walker is a very Christian man. I can't imagine how he is going to digest this. The Pope also, of course, apologized for the church's role in total evil in this new world, in the old kind of colonialism, in forced conversions and all of that, all of which in the destruction of the indigenous populations. He said there was sin, and an abundant amount of it. I humbly ask forgiveness, not only for the offenses of the church, but also for crimes committed against the native peoples during the, get this, so-called conquest of the Americas. He talked about labor. He said that the new colonialism imposes austerity and calls for the, and he said, and instead, what the poor need is not austerity. They need the sacred rights of labor, lodging, and land. He called them the 3 L's. What he said yesterday was one of the longest speeches he's ever given. Without a doubt, the most passionate. He revisited much of what he said in his encyclical regarding the destruction of the earth. And he decried global capitalism, he said, which reduces the poor and poor nations to nothing more than providers of cheap labor and raw material for the rich. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I cannot wait till he comes here. He's going to Philly. He's going to Washington. In Philadelphia, he's going to be, he's visiting a prison there. I love this Pope. So, he says the system that we venerate, that our political leaders venerate, Republican and Democrat in this country, the triumphant global capitalism that we have, he calls that intolerable. Now, just to add some total, I mean, okay, so you have the Pope, and then you have the president of Bolivia, who's a piece of work, Evo Morales. Evo is the first non-European descended Bolivian to be the president of the country. He is the first indigenous people's president. He is an Amira Indian. He is without a doubt a communist. He's without a doubt a communist. So the Pope comes, and he made remarks preceding the Popes, and he talked a long time. Did you see what he was wearing? Because he's known for wearing the same sweater almost every day. In fact, it's a sweater that's so iconic to him. It's striped with red stripes, white stripes of different widths, and sort of a powder blue as well. The reason I know this sweater so well is that my mother, to make my son a present, knitted him an Evo sweater when he was about 10, because Sam was very proud of the fact that Bolivia was now finally run by a native, like he is. So my mom, although she held her nose about Evo's communism, and what she sees as his anti-Semitism, made the sweater. That sweater he still wears. I said, Mom, make it real big so that he can wear it forever. That sweater, he'll wear it till the day he dies. But Evo was not wearing that sweater. One of the first times I saw, he was wearing like an open collared shirt, and he had on this jacket. And on the jacket, right over his heart, was a picture of Che. So here you have the Pope, and here you have Evo with Che at his heart, and they're all talking the same language. The Pope, however, looked a little freaked, apparently. Oh, no. Wait. I just want to say I said something absolutely incorrect. The Pope is visiting a prison in Bolivia, not in Philly. Why did I think it was in Philly? Okay, I read so much I get mixed up. Okay, but, the president, Morales, gave the Pope a gift, which you do. And the Pope, it was said, looked bemused when he looked at it, didn't quite know what to do. The gift that Evo Morales gave the Pope was a sculpted wooden hammer and sickle with, get this, a figure of a crucified Christ resting on the hammer. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wonderful stuff. I'm sorry, it's just wonderful stuff. I love it. I was worried about the Pope because I couldn't believe they made him, his plane flew into the capital, La Paz, which I've talked about before because it's, the tallest in altitude. The tallest isn't the right word, right? The highest? Right. The highest capital city in the world. And I think the highest major airport in the world is in La Paz. Planes don't like flying in where there's so little air. It's dangerous. And the airport is at 14,000 feet. And when you get off the pressurized cabin of the airplane and hit the atmosphere of 14,000 feet, people drop. I mean, they do. People drop. They have these banisters as you get off. They warn you before you get off. They tell you to hang on. They tell you to, be careful. They tell you that you're not going to feel well. And boy, they weren't kidding. It is daunting. Now, here's a pope who has one lung. And when I heard, I thought, oh no, they're not going to make a guy with one lung get off at 14,000 feet and then have to perform. They did. And he made it. An old man with one lung at 14,000 feet. And according to Vatican accounts, on the plane on the way over, the Pope was given what's the general mixture of coca tea with some chamomile and other things to drink, which is supposed to help. Let me tell you, it doesn't help. I can't believe he did it. And then you look at him the next day in Santa Cruz, which is back down to earth, and he looks vigorous. God bless him. When we got to our hotel room in the hotel we were staying at in La Paz, I was barely standing by then. I'd managed to get off the bus, and I'd managed to walk into the hotel lobby to say a reservation for and I was literally hanging on the desk and looking like I was going to pass out. And apparently they're used to that. So the guy said, yes, Miss Cullen, welcome. We will have an oxygen tank delivered to your room immediately. He said, and we recommend you, and they give you the coca. And, I mean, they tell you to brew it, make a tea. I was so desperate, I was taking coca leaves and just shoving them in my mouth and chewing on them. And the oxygen didn't even quite do it. It took 2 days to even begin to feel like I could function. I had my baby with me then, and I was so. At one point, I had to get to the bathroom, and I actually was crawling on my hands and knees holding this baby. Holding a baby that I wasn't even quite sure what to do with at that point. I had been a mother for a day. Oh, my God. Hello. Caller. Hello.
Yes, Lynn. The Pope will be visiting a jail in Philadelphia.
And
the ironic thing about it is there is a priest confined there.
Oh, yes.
Who has been convicted.
For sex crime.
Convicted of...
Covering up.
Yes,
covering up.
Monsignor Lynch or whatever his name
I wonder if is he going to that prison?
Well, that's what I understand. He'll be going to that prison.
Do you think he'll... Geez, that's interesting.
But anyhow.
Well, that's interesting, and thank you. So I did read somewhere. Okay, he must like prisons. He goes to where he wants to minister. Okay, Kathleen writes in regard to me not getting the guy's information when I was rear-ended and stuff, says this, Lynn, if it makes you feel any better, I'll tell you this. I'll be 68 years old in November. And what you describe about your attitude and responses yesterday is exactly what I feel every day. I just no longer want to be bothered. To my mind, that's the very best thing about getting old. No more giving a shit about that stuff. Might be. It might be. It just didn't seem important. It wasn't something I wanted to deal with, so goodbye. But But, yeah, okay. Well, thanks, Kathleen. You seem to be on the same page. Oh, I'm sorry. I got lost in La Paz, didn't I? But it's an extraordinary city. It's at 13,000 feet, so you get in at La Paz at 14, and then you drop down to the relative comfort of 13,000 feet. And while you're being trundled down to the 13,000 feet, down the Andes Mountains, on little windy roads, you see these women, natives, walking up the mountain with things on their backs and heads, carrying unbelievable, and they're walking up. I met a American doctor in La Paz when I was there, and he said that the life expectancy at that altitude is not great. The heart does have to work very hard and wears out sooner. Also, the fact that people that live at that height tend to be shorter and tend to have very large chests and bigger hearts because they got a boom, bada boom, bada boom, bada boom. I don't know. Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay, I've got another story here. This one brings us back to the U.S. and to our former leadership, namely one George W. Bush. Generally speaking, he has been credited for being a better ex-president than a president because he's gone away and not bothered much with, he hasn't criticized what's happened, and he's just shut up. He went away. But it turns out that he is doing what Bill Clinton gets criticized for. He is giving speeches. It's how he's making his money. He does give speeches and they cost up to $250,000 every time he, as you can imagine, listening to that guy who can barely get a sentence out of his mouth, why you would, jeez, it's amazing. Anyway, he gave a speech the other day, and I'm sorry because this thing didn't print out very well, and I'm not sure exactly what the charity is called, but he gave it to a charity that provides specially adapted homes for veterans who now need specially adapted homes because they're in wheelchairs or their legs were blown off, or they're blind, or their brains don't function very well anymore. And so here he was agreeing to speak to this group, and he said, "I'll cut my fee for you." He accepted $100,000. Now, let that just rest in your head for a second. The reason the charity exists is because he brought this country into 2 wars. The reason these guys need specially adapted houses is because he lied to the American people. So the charity exists to help people who need help because George W. Bush had a real macho kind of need to approach foreign policy with a hammer. He liked to start wars. And they need charity because George W. Bush and his Republican Party did not like to adequately fund the Veterans Administration or government facilities that themselves should be helping these returning wounded warriors that we love to give a lot of lip service to, but then let suffer from PTSD so that their suicide rate is actually, they're in greater danger when they get back to this country than they were at war. And the people who run this charity said they were grateful to the president for lowering his speaking fee to a mere $100,000. And because he was there, it would help them raise more money for these people who would not have lost their limbs or suffered their injuries if not for his habitual need to start wars in Arab lands. Can you imagine? You start a war or two that results in this kind of carnage, and then as a civilian, you charge a charity to come and give some speech that someone else will write for you? You charge him $100,000. Why would you not say, of course, you're not giving me a penny. You're not giving me a penny. I don't need it, one. And by the way, Laura Bush also did something with this charity, and she got $50,000. So the Bushes walked away with $150,000, which a charity paid out. That $150,000 should have gone to the wounded soldiers. I mean, how do you even... Okay, I have nothing to say. Certain things leave me speechless. Certain things leave me speechless. We have a call? Good. He's got something to say. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, I'll just make this quick. I'm hoping, maybe, I don't know what you feel on this, but I'm hoping this election for the presidency, I'm hoping with this Bernie Sanders and even Trump on the other side, I'm hoping that people are looking for something different than a Republican and Democrat, or they want to improve the Republican or Democrat. Mm-hmm. They want something different from those two parties. And I'm hoping this Bernie Sanders and even Trump, I know he's a crazy bastard, but I hope they change something. I hope that we get a better candidate out of it.
Well,
I just can't see this Hillary and Bush again. It just nauseates me. I mean, I might not even vote, I don't think.
No. Don't get that despairing. All you got to
come on.
Think about the Supreme Court. Think about certain things that it does make a difference whether you've got Hillary in there or Jeb or anybody else. Really. Please.
But I mean, they got to be a better Democrat. But in the Republican side, they got to change too. I mean,
well, this is the corruption of our system, and the the American people. I think you're right that the Bernie boomlet and the Trump, success in the polls right now, obviously bespeaks a kind of populist anger that people are feeling. I mean, it's where the Tea Party and and Occupy Wall Street come together. People on the right and the left, regular Americans, know they're getting screwed.
Right.
They differ maybe on who's going to help them out of it, but there's true populist rage in this country, which usually, could lead to a kind of, a revolutionary kind of movement. But for some reason in this country, it never happens. We did it once in 1776, and we don't seem inclined to do it again. I don't know. I don't know what it will take. For my fear always is that when Americans get totally fed up, their populist rage will move to the right more than to the left. And that means that we'll just put in place a more sort of crazed Republican fascistic, where we'll turn from government altogether and leave ourselves in the hands of the capitalists. I don't know.
I'm not so sure that Hillary is the sure bet either. They
no,
claim
I don't.
She is,
no, she's not.
I don't know.
No, I agree. I don't think she is either.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite possible. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think Bernie Sanders could easily win New Hampshire, could easily win Iowa. Those are the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can happen. But she'll then roll right over him. I mean, he is too far to the left to win a general election, and Trump is insane.
Right.
Trump is insane. That is a total narcissist. That is somebody who requires more attention than any.
I sometimes wonder if he's not wanting Hillary in there.
No.
You don't think?
He's only thinking. Trump doesn't think about anything other than himself.
Well, that's true. His hair tells you that.
I don't know what his hair tells you.
I don't know either.
I think it tells you he's nuts.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay. Nice talking to you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, Ray says, your show is great. Your app stinks. No wonder most people listen later.
The audio?
You want more specifics from Ray? What do you want to know?
I want to know if he's talking about the streaming video online or the actual audio app.
Okay, well, I'll ask him later. I have nothing to do with it. And there's not much that... I don't know. Okay. So that flag's down by now. It's down. It's gone. Toodaloo. I hope they didn't treat it with too much respect or anything. If I were doing it, the ceremony would have involved ripping it down and then throwing it in a wastebasket. So, this, people are getting, there are, in Memphis, the city council has passed a resolution that they want to dig up the grave of, what's his name, for a general, he was a very brave general in the Confederate cause, and then he founded the Ku Klux Klan. He is revered. He's buried somewhere in Memphis in a public land, along with his lovely wife. And the Memphis Council said, we want to dig him up and put him somewhere else because he does not belong in public property. And statues of him, there's a million schools named after him. I think even Yale has something with him. It's all over the place. It's all over the place. And there's an effort in Congress, where all the states' flags hang, to not allow the state flags that have the Confederate flag in some form in it. Now, some specifically have that flag up in the corner. I think Georgia does. But like Florida, Jeb Bush likes to say, we took that Confederate flag down and put it where it belongs, in a museum. But the flag then that they created for the Florida flag has a big cross through it, which is clearly meant to remember the Confederacy. Oh, how my heart goes pity-pat whenever I think of the wondrous days of the Confederacy. Did you see the speech that the state rep from Charleston, a woman, gave on the floor of the Carolina House, which pretty much sealed the deal? It's worth watching. She did it with no notes. She just spoke her heart, and she raged, and she screamed, and she cried, and she pleaded, and it was one powerful speech. One powerful speech. Well, I think that's pretty much it. My head's hurting. I'm sorry, guys. You know what's weird is right before I was rear-ended, I had lunch in a place, and a woman at the next table had one of those neck braces on. And I remember I looked at her, I thought, oh, God, boy, would I hate to have something like that on. And then, I'm serious, 25 minutes later, I'm rear-ended, which is probably what happened. Isn't usually that's from a... But I ain't wearing one of those. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, I think we're done, pretty much, huh? I just want to say this, and it's going to sound more like a plea and a prayer than an exhortation. But it comes from my heart. And it is a heart that is fearful. Go Bucks! Go Bucks! There's birds all over the bases. Don't let it happen. We don't like them birds. No, we don't. We can still take this series. We can even split the series. That would be okay too. But please, step up. All right there, I said it. I'm done. I'm going out onto the street and join the furries. Okay? You have a great weekend. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.